Hi, it's Joy Foster, founder of TechPixies and the host of the Sparkle and Thrive podcast. And I'm delighted today to be with one of our masterminders, Kay Holdsworth, who is launching an amazing coaching program that she has spent more than a decade developing the concept of. So, Kay, let's start with your story. Tell us a little bit about you and what got you to this point where you're now launching a coaching program that you've been dreaming about, thinking about for 15 years.
Yeah, for such a long time. It's been a long time in the making as this, Joy, for definite. So currently I work part-time. I work part-time for a university in Leeds as a therapist. And I was a wellbeing practitioner for a number of years as well. And I have had a longing, a desire. I know in Dream Builder we talk about longings, but also there's been a lot of searching and discontent as well over the years because I really wanted to create workshops, and I was doing them out in the community, but I didn't know how to, create a business. And then when I hit 40, I ended up having my only child and becoming a single parent. And it was a massive shock to the system, to be honest. And everything had been going really well up to, like, I had a home birth, everything was really natural. And then in 6 weeks into having my son, Zen, he ended up with suspected meningitis, getting rushed into hospital, and we were in for a week together. And it was a real catalyst that suddenly I just became incredibly anxious, and that anxiety I was very stressed after. I think I had I did have some counselling, and she believed I had postnatal depression because some of the thoughts that I was having were not, just not thoughts that I would have. They were just not thoughts that you'd normally have. And I was really struggling, and I developed full blown anxiety, and I was in a really dark place for quite a long time. And then I gradually clawed myself out of that, but it knocked me, and it knocked my suddenly my life was a lot smaller and more restricted. And I remember watching this program. Actually, it was about call girls, these two call girls, and they interviewed the father, and the father turned round and he said, well, at least she's not a single parent living in a council flat. And that was me. And
Wow.
I was laughing at the time of, but that's where I was. And and things was it was a lot harder than I'd imagined, and the dreams that I'd had all felt I'd started to lose hope, really. And I'd forgotten who I was. I'd lost myself. Life had become quite restricted. And yeah, I gave up on my dreams. I gave up on my dreams for a good few, good couple of years, really, and decided it was just easier. I wasn't thriving. I was just really barely surviving, to be honest, during that time. So I
And
know what it's like to lose yourself, and that's why
yeah,
I want people.
and that's so important because that really was the catalyst for you refinding yourself and really creating yourself. And so talk about what that process for you was like and why it's important that you bring that process to the world for other women who might be going through what you were going through.
Well, I think it's important because we all have inside us, we all have so much purpose, so much potential, so much possibility. And sometimes life can really get in the way, or we can forget who we are quite quite easily, actually, sometimes. I think because life can become, we've got lots of obligations. We have our families, our children to look after. We maybe put their needs before our own needs. Our lives can feel a little bit like, we get up, we go to work, we make tea, repeat, next day, repeat, rinse, and it just goes on. And before you know it, we're in this hamster wheel. And yeah, we lose touch with that person who has longings, who has desires, who, genuinely wants. And we forget to prioritize the things that matter. I think women particularly can fall into this trap of forgetting. We prioritize maybe chasing the wrong things, or the things that brought us to life, we maybe don't spend the time doing those things anymore. So I think it is really important that a course like what I'm going to be delivering, Find Your Spark, is vital, because if we can live a life that is true to who we are, more so, and that we can get to the end of our life and look back on our lives and think, yeah, I I I was true to who I am, because that's one of the number one regrets of the dying, according to Bronnie Ware in her book The Five Regrets of the Dying. The number one regret is that I wish I'd had the courage to be truer, to live a life true to who I am, to myself.
Yeah, and I think so many women get to the end of their lives and feel that they didn't have the option, right? And so
Yeah.
part of it is reminding women that they deserve to live a life that they would love, that they have a right to live a life that they would love, and
Hmm.
that and if and giving them the tools to help them get through that. So you talked about having, obviously after your son goes through this traumatic illness, and then also you've got this anxiety that comes off the back of that.
Yeah.
You put all of your dreams on hold. You get into this routine. It's repetitive
Yeah.
and mundane, but it's serving a purpose. It's keeping everybody safe, keeping things going along the way. So as you've developed this program called Find Your Spark, talk about some of the discoveries that you personally made along the way that you've put into Find Your Spark that have come out of really healing and moving forward and coming out of this period of anxiety and back into a life of your dreams. So what are some of the things that you discovered along the way, and how did you put that into the program?
Hmm. Well, I think it's a little bit like following the breadcrumbs out of the woods, a little bit like Hansel and Gretel, you know. So certain things like really getting in touch with what my own values are, what's important to me, what matters to me, what do I really care about the most, and following my own interest and curiosities as well. That's really helped me. So for a number of years, I stopped dancing. I've always loved to dance, and it's probably when I'm at my most happiest and in the moment self, with the most joy, definitely. And so I'd stopped doing that, and I started to reflect on that, and I thought, well, I need to start dancing again. So that's what I do. I go dancing every Wednesday night, and it's a range of ages. From, honestly, there's 8-year-olds, and one of our oldest members is like 70. And I've also started to go dancing with my mum as well. So it's about, and also doing something that feels purposeful, because research shows that when we are making progress on something that's meaningful to us, that actually helps us feel happier and more
Mm.
content and satisfied. So what I started to do as well, I'd always journaled, but I began to write. Because I'd been longing to write a book, and I've got to admit the book isn't finished yet, but it's in the pipeline. And I joined it's still on. It's called Writers Hour. It's London Writers Hour. Anyone can look it up. It's free. It's brilliant. And they do writing sessions 8 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 9 o'clock. And I started to join those. And just by doing that 8 o'clock one in the morning, I'd send my son to breakfast club for me to be able and come back and do that before I went off to work. That gave me a sense of purpose. Journaling is one of the big tools that I do use.
So leaning into your value set,
Yeah,
doing something that you really enjoy, just
yeah.
signing up for it and going and doing it, and then journaling. So those are three things that you discovered helped you get back to finding who you were, and you've built that into the Find Your Spark program.
And taking action as well, because without any action, we can have all the knowledge we want, can't we? But without putting it into some practice, without getting out there. And I was stuck for so long. I was, honestly, I lived in Stucksville. I didn't just have the t-shirt, I had the bag and the shoes to match. Honestly, I know what being stuck feels like. I have been there. So, and but actually realizing that it's small tiny steps, that we don't actually have to move mountains. We don't have I think I had too big a goals, to be honest, for a long time. And actually I think that in a paradoxical kind of way, it was counterintuitive for me, and actually kept me stuck. And since I've actually brought it back to a more holistic, I don't know, just coming more grounded with it and more truer to me, to what I need and want, because that's an important thing. In terms of the course, is about looking at what we do need, what we do want. Creating, your like vision workshop, dream builder, some these elements of that in as well. Getting clear on what you want, because we can. There's often we might know what we want, or well, not necessarily know what we want, but we might have pushed it aside. We might have suppressed it for so long that we don't trust it anymore.
Yeah.
um and there's a lot of forgotten dreams out there, isn't there, and a lot of potential left on the table.
I think there's a lot of validity in what you just said in terms of sometimes you can dream so big that actually the steps to get there can feel so big that you basically freeze and don't move forward
Yeah.
and get stuck, like you said. And I think I've definitely played with that as well, sort of keeping the vision, the bigger vision in mind, but then saying, okay, well, if I'm going to, if we break down that bigger vision and we look at what we can do with what we have with where we're at to move forwards, I think that's really important. And it's not that we totally dismiss the big dream, but we make steps towards a version of that dream that moves us in the right direction. So I think for me, for sure, I experienced that when I had really big visions for the company about how quickly I wanted it to grow and how big I wanted it to grow. And in many ways we were going for it. And then we had a lot of setbacks that came in, and I had to rebuild my confidence and rebuild the dream. And it's true. One of the things I did is I modified the dream temporarily. Like I sort of brought it back in, made it a little bit more achievable. And then we started seeing progress towards that. And then now we're opening back up. So I think there's a lot of merit in sort of looking at what your vision is and not letting go of the big picture, but then sort of saying, okay, what's a step I could do right now that's going to move me forwards, and doing it in a way that once you achieve that, your body, your brain knows, okay, I can do that. So now I can push myself to do the next thing and the next thing. And I think there's merit in that. I for sure. And I think it helps having a coach, because
It helps.
yeah, it really does, because they can help put things into perspective. They've been there before. They know what it feels like to be totally stuck. They know what it feels like to go. A lot of coaches, the reason they're coaches is because they've managed to work through these challenges. And they know what it feels like to be where you want to be. I mean,
yeah, exactly. They're just maybe a couple of steps ahead. Not, it's not so far ahead, but another couple of steps. But if they're too far removed, they don't necessarily understand anyway. And also groups. I mean, the power of a group, of course. And you know this yourself, Joy, from all the different courses and how people will start on one course and then move to another. Because when you're in a course, it can create like a magical environment. If you get that right, the people and that encouragement and support that everyone gets from each other, that recognition that you're not on your own, that there's other people that are there keeping you accountable, keeping you on track, and that 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 is what I love creating. It's what I've really enjoyed. When you see people and the first day, when you see them on the first session, and then to look at where they get to at the end, that is really exciting. That's why I want to do it. This is why I want to do this course.
I totally agree with you. I love seeing someone at the very beginning of their journey where there's a lot of fear, stuckness, anxiety, frustration. And then as you work through tools over a period of time, at TechPixies, I used to call it the magic week 6. Once we got to the week 6, it was like you said, the spark was back.
Yeah.
In fact,
Yeah.
when we first started we had a hashtag, which was bring back the sparkle was the first hashtag we had. And it was so funny because eventually it was taken over by like oven cleaning and jewelry cleaning.
I remember you saying about that. Yeah.
But really it was about women like going back to that spark inside them. And I think that's what you're really passionate about, because
it's
what
remembering who you are, your essence. Yeah.
So you've got a webinar coming up that sort of gets people, gives people a free taster of this Find Your Spark program. What can people expect if they sign up for the webinar?
Well, it's called the Carpe Diem webinar. So it's Seize the Day. And seize the day comes like from Latin, as you're probably aware, but it just means to enjoy life, to feel fulfilled. And I will be sharing a powerful practice that helps people to wake up to what actually matters most, what's important, because I think, we can get stuck in the humdrum of life, can't we? The life admin, and we can lose sight of what really truly does matter. So I'm hoping, and I genuinely believe, that this webinar can be a catalyst for some of your listeners out there to actually start to get clear on what does matter, and also they'll take away 3 manageable action steps as well to start moving on. And easy wins, because that's, in terms of what we were just talking about there, Joy, before, about, when we're stuck, we need to have something where we need to remind ourselves of, sometimes we forget the progress we've made. So having a guide, a coach there to actually remind you of, actually, you've actually done a lot in the past. You're just taking it, you're taking it for granted, all the things you've done. And then also supporting you to move forward as well. So yeah, it's only an hour. It's an hour, and if you can't make the time, then you can always watch the replay as well. And I really genuinely believe that it can really kickstart you into getting excited and feeling like, yeah, I really do want to make, if it's making changes in your life, maybe, changing a job, or ending a relationship that's not working perhaps, or, just giving you that wake up call that maybe you need to start living differently.
I love that. And what's really cool about this too, because this is a big dream of yours, like we said in the beginning, for 15 years, you've been dreaming about launching your own coaching business. So this is this first step, your first webinar, your first cohort of Find Your Spark. So the reason we're doing this podcast, and the reason that we wanted to introduce you to the Tech Pixie world, is, number one, you are a Tech Pixie, right? You've done our Dream Builder program, our BBS program. You're one of our masterminders. So we love to promote women who've been in our community and who are doing amazing things. So we thought we would do this podcast to introduce you to the Tech Pixie audience. And because people are finding out about you through the Tech Pixie podcast and the newsletter, etc., you're going to do a really special offer for your Find Your Spark program, and it's going to be the only time that this special offer is available. So you're going to give a huge discount for your first pilot group that's going to go through. And this is something that I think is very brave to do, but also a really great way to test out what you think is going to work. And you've been using these systems, you've been using these processes for yourself. It's made a huge difference for you. So now you've put it into a program that you're going to work with women on. And really, it's this very first cohort is your gift to the world, to say, I'm going to work with a small number of people. I'm going to give them a huge opportunity to help me launch my dream. And so I just really applaud you for taking these steps forwards, for doing your first webinar, for doing your first cohort. I mean, this isn't your first rodeo. You've been counseling, coaching, doing therapy for a long time. But what you're doing is you're leaning into a dream of yours, and we want to support you on that. So we're going to make sure that the link to the webinar is in the show notes. It's in the email that goes out with this podcast. But if people want to go find the webinar, where can they go if they're listening and they want to go right now?
They can go to kayholdsworth.com, and the webinar is literally at the top. Just click on that to the free webinar and just sign up. Yeah. I mean, what have you got to lose, really? Yeah. It could be potentially life-changing.
And we've got people watching on Instagram saying, "Go Kay, it's so inspiring."
Yay! I am excited. Honestly am. I'm really excited about it. And it is, it means a lot. It does mean an awful lot to me. And I'll be putting my heart and soul into this workshop, and the course as well. The course is like, it means it means a huge amount to me. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember, being exactly where you are. I remember being there. I remember launching my very first cohort in Oxford, when mine was in person. I remember launching my first online cohort. I remember doing my first webinar. These are all those things that, we need to do in order to reach people we've never reached before, but they can feel daunting. And I just am so proud of you for doing this. And we had a conversation the other day, like, no matter what happens, the fact that you've taken all of these steps, you've built your funnel, you've created your emails, you've set up your webinar, you've created your course, you're going to launch this to the world. That to me is just massive, and it's a huge step forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's scary, but it's also exciting. And I just got to keep coming back to that excitement, because it feels well, it's definitely, like I say, I've been planning this for so long. I mean, this is it. It's time. It's time now. And if not now, when? And that's the thing. It's like, I want to just remind women about that. If not now, when? Because tomorrow is not promised. We don't know how much time we've got. So seize the day. Yeah.
I love it. Well, Kay, I'm so glad that you found us, or we found you. So,
I found you, Joy. I definitely found you.
To me, that's what I love about TechPixies and how it connects. We have an incredible network of women who are doing amazing things, who really are bringing their gifts and talents into the world. So I would love for anyone listening to this, if this podcast has resonated with you, to go and sign up for Kay's webinar. TechPixies doesn't get a cut out of this. This isn't an affiliate sale. This is just me watching someone in our community who has built something beautiful and wanting to support her getting it out into the world. And so, that's what I would encourage you to do. We've got some wonderful live listeners here. So Paula says, thank you both for brightening my morning. Kelly says, I can see how important this is to you. Huge love and light to you. And we've got, like I said, we got two ladies watching on Instagram saying, go girl, go Kay. So listen.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you. And I can feel the momentum building, just these last few weeks, and that's what you need. Once it starts to build, that motivation builds, and I feel more, I'm not second guessing myself now, because actually I'm getting out of my own way and out of my own head. So
we've got someone who's asking, what's the name of your business? How can they find you on social media? Do you want to share that information so people can find you?
Yes, my business is Create Yourself, but I'm under my own name. So you just look up Kay Holdsworth, and you will find me on Facebook, Instagram, although I'm fairly new to Instagram, and I'm also on LinkedIn as well.
Awesome. I appreciate your willingness to get out of your comfort zone, come on the podcast, and invite people to your webinar. We fully support you, and I look forward to hearing how it goes.
Thank you. And thank you, Joy, for all your help as well. It's been amazing.
Oh, my pleasure. All right. Well, that was really fun for me. I love working with women really closely in our mastermind, in our Business Beyond Social program. And I've been working with Kay really closely for the last few months. And I have seen her really come into her own, this product that she's got to put out into this world, this webinar, all of this it's inside of her, and it's what helped her get through the most challenging time period in her life. And I think there's a lot of merit in that. And I really know that there's going to be people who are listening to this podcast, who are on our mailing list, that story is going to resonate with them, and they're going to want to work with Kay. And I wanted to make sure that you knew how to connect with her. So again, all the links will be in the show notes. They'll also be in the email that goes with the podcast. And we'd love for you to go and check that out. And of course, if you'd like help with launching your business, your dream business that you've been thinking about for 15 years but haven't yet done it, we have an amazing business program. We have an amazing mastermind. We also have our social media program and our life coaching program. We're here for you. So feel free to reach out to us. Emails at support@techpixies.com, or go to our website, techpixies.com, to find out about the latest free training that we've got available to you. Have a great day, and thank you for listening.